Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we couldn't have two more important topics and interesting topics on the program today. Elder care, how important is it? You're going to find out. Remember the mortgage crisis? It's still with us. And what is the state doing about it? You'll find out in a few moments.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, we have the third oldest population in the state, in the country, let me point out. Huge numbers of folks may go south, may go west, may go other places. A lot of them return because they can get better medical care in the state, and also the health care benefits that accrue to certain folks, depending on their income, are pretty good in the state of Pennsylvania compared to other states. Health care for the elderly, couldn't have a better person to chat about that today. Dr. Stuart Shapiro, often on the program, President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. Dr. Shapiro, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Terry. It's nice to be here.
Well, you're a great guest. We love to have you on because you've got a wealth of experience in all of these areas. Let's talk sort of before we get into numbers. Let's talk about the situation. I mean, we've all been there. I've been there as a son. Put my mother in a nursing home. Tough decision. Talk about what, I mean, I think we have a lot of viewers out there, put their parents, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle them? Boy, isn't this a tough, how many tougher decisions do you have in your life?
That is about the toughest decision that a child has to make is, along with their parents, what do I do about their health care needs and about their living needs? Fortunately, although Pennsylvania is among the oldest states in the nation, right, and we're second in those over 85, which is where today, fortunately, because people live longer and healthier lives, is when the crunch often occurs. Right. We have a broad continuum of care. And we have a broad continuum of care whether you're rich or poor. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, if you're poor, that continuum tends to shrink. But we have excellent hospitals. Mm-hmm. We have excellent home care providers. We have excellent personal care homes and assisted living facilities. And we have 700 robust, high-quality nursing homes in Pennsylvania.
Now look, you've been around this country a lot. You've done a lot of advising to different people and groups about health care. On a whole, is this one of the better states, do you think, to get this? I mean, the total package, our state seems pretty good, doesn't it?
Well, yes and no. If you're someone who has a lot of money, has worked their whole life, has saved, mm-hmm, you have access to a broad array of services. Unfortunately, if you don't have a lot of money, or you're in the middle class who is going to spend down, mm-hmm, for their care because they don't have long-term care insurance, and 95% of Pennsylvanians don't, whether they're middle class or go either way. But the reality is
you mean like insurance policy for nursing homes?
Nursing homes or home health care.
Yeah.
I mean, I have long-term care insurance, which will pay for, yeah, care for me when I'm older and when I'm sicker and I need to have care at either a home or an assisted, yeah, living facility or in a nursing home. But unfortunately, the Pennsylvania Medicaid program doesn't reimburse very well. In fact, recently, the Secretary of the Department of Welfare said Medicaid is a bad provider or a bad payer of care. Mm-hmm. And while we today have very good home health providers, which is great for the people who need home health care.
Right.
But when a family has to make a very tough choice, and it is a very tough and painful choice because they can't provide the services at home, or the housing isn't available, or it's multiple, right, stories, and people need to, and they're mostly older. Most people are north of 80 by when they start to go into nursing homes. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, while we have 700 plus very good nursing homes in the Commonwealth, Medicaid doesn't pay very well for their care, to the point that the quality gains are now at risk of being lost.
Now, is this something we're going to go to a break in a minute, but is this systemic with Medicaid, or do states have sort of options about supplementing that with their own resources?
Well, every state pretty much designs its own Medicaid program. And Pennsylvania's program, while broad, just doesn't pay very well. It doesn't pay very well for home health care, and it doesn't pay very well for those who need to be in a nursing home. And those are, unfortunately, put the providers of that care at jeopardy.
Right. All right, we'll be back. This is an important topic. I mean, this is a huge decision that a lot of us had to make. I had to make it. Did you have to make that decision yet?
No.
Personally, well, I did, and it's a tough decision. We're chatting with Dr. Stuart Shapiro about this. We'll talk a little more about the funding following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back with Dr. Stuart Shapiro, the President and CEO of Pennsylvania Healthcare Association. We're talking about, this decision, take care of the elderly in the home, in a nursing home. Just making that decision is not always easy, is it? I mean, which is the more appropriate care?
Well, most people prefer to spend their golden years at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
And when 24/7 care is needed, we have to have the nursing homes that can provide quality care in the most home-like setting possible. Yeah. It's interesting. You're a man of surveys and of research. We just completed a survey, an independent survey of how people felt about the care they were receiving in nursing homes and how their family felt about it and whether they would recommend it to someone, to a friend or another relative. And well over 80% of the people were very satisfied. 88% of the residents in nursing homes said that they were satisfied with the care, thought it was very good, and would recommend it to a relative. And that's important.
I'll tell you something fascinating, just anecdotally. Friends of mine have had the same decision. Parents resisted it. They didn't want to do this. Nobody wants it. Once there, you can't get them out.
Exactly right.
I mean, the same with my wife's grandfather. Had a lot of trouble. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do this. Once you get him there, okay. My mother, same way. Didn't want to go. We said, Mom, you got to do this. And it was amazing. There's something. Maybe it's the fact they got other people with the same condition. They all sort of get to relate to each other. They all, talk about their own medical problems. But I don't know almost anyone who said, well, I'm in, I want out. They all want to stay. Go ahead.
When you need to be there, you need to be there.
But they understand it themselves. That's what's kind of interesting about that.
But that's the challenge we face today, because the Medicaid budget and the budget being proposed by this administration keeps funding level. Costs keep going up. The costs go up at a rate almost double inflation, normal inflation, and yet the amount of money Medicaid pays is very inadequate. Nursing homes today lose, and it's very unfortunate, about $4,300 a day on every Medicaid person. And how do they stay in business, you might ask?
Yeah, well, that's where I was going.
They shift the costs to those on Medicare, and they shift the cost to private pay patients, which isn't fair. And it's really because of the 65% of the people in nursing homes in Pennsylvania are on Medicaid, it really makes it very difficult for them to maintain the quality care that they are so committed to doing.
And so your point is that because so many are at that level, on Medicaid, the reimbursements haven't kept pace with inflation, that puts pressure on the nursing homes across the whole range of services that they provide.
Absolutely.
Do I got that right?
You do have that right, and that's why the nursing home, why the nursing home associations and the residents and their families held a rally at the Capitol a couple of weeks ago. There were 32,000 signatures given to the governor and to the legislature that said, please pay us, please pay adequately so we in our golden years can live with dignity. 32,000 signatures. And they're saying to the legislature, just keep up with the cost of inflation. We know it's not tough times. So that's been our appeal to the governor, and we hope that the legislature will, in fact, overrule the governor's budget.
Yeah, we're talking about, what, $4,300 per resident per year, right?
Correct.
Is that what it is? Okay, caring for Medicaid. Well, look, this has been the other point before I let you go is that what do we know is that with the huge number of people, as you point out, 80 seems to be sort of that magic number, which we all want to reach. But then the health care costs, which may rise like that when you get to 80, just shoot up markedly. And we're going to have a lot more demand for nursing home as well as home care services.
Absolutely, and fortunately, it's a subject that the presidential candidates are not addressing. They talk health care reform, but they don't talk long-term care reform.
Yeah, we're going to get you back to talk about that. $31 trillion estimated when the $75 million tracked through Medicaid. $31 trillion, or about maybe $34 million for Medicare. Trillion rather. That's what these costs are, and we get all this $75 million into these systems. As always, thanks for being on. Great update.
Always a pleasure, Terry.
All right, we'll be back. Subprime mortgage crisis. What's the legislature trying to do about it? We'll talk about that and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Mortgage crisis, it still looms as a huge issue. What is the state of Pennsylvania doing about it? Joining me to talk about it is Representative Pete Daley. He chairs the House Commerce Committee, and Rick Wargo. He's General Counsel of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Peter, let me start with you. Representative Daley, let me start with you. The state has been considering a number of vehicles in the legislature to address some of the problems. Let's pick up a couple of them that I think would be of great interest to our viewers. One would be licensing. We license barbers. We go through the list. What do you plan to do about folks individuals who handle mortgages?
Well, the governor had a package of six. It's called the 6-pack. We refined it down now to the 5-pack. It's in the House and the Senate. Hopefully in 2 weeks we're going to be able to have this on the governor's desk.
Okay.
The most important part of that is, as you said, we have to stop those people out doing mortgages. Those mortgage brokers that just set up a shop, have a secretary, put a letterhead on, no control, no license, and in this legislation, in this package of bills, we license them.
Yeah.
We make them take continuing education classes, we oversee them, we can prosecute them, and we're going to watch what they're doing because there are too many bad guys out there and girls that are really playing havoc on the
Yeah, Rick, that seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, there's so many areas of our society that we legislate, as Representative Daley points out. Mortgage, I mean, you're talking about, in some cases, right, a lifelong commitment here.
No question. A mortgage is the largest transaction or the biggest investment that a consumer is going to make. So in addition to the licensing, the 5-pack, as Representative Daley calls it, enhances the powers of the Department of Banking to supervise and enforce some pro-consumer terms on some of these outfits.
Now, one of the other bills that are under consideration has to do with sort of the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency itself. We don't need to get into the technical stuff, but one of the things I think you're trying to do here, Representative Daley, is to make sure that there's a state entity that's getting information about these mortgages so that, you know, you can, well, you tell me. I mean, there's an obvious reason why you would want this. Why is this important to, you know, our viewers out there?
Well, first of all, right now there's no way of systematically gathering that information, nowhere to have that information put together and provided to the public, provided to the Attorney General, provided to the Secretary of Banking. With PHFA actually acting in this capacity, we'll know where there's hot spots. We'll know where there's things going on that should be going on, be going on, like in Monroe County, where we have this big astronomical number of foreclosures because of illegal activity by some people that were mortgage brokers in cahoots with people that were appraisers and some people that were not got loans for these people.
Now, would this be information on all loans or just mortgages that are in default? What's this, is there a difference here?
The target is mortgages that are in foreclosure, and what would be triggered when a financial institution is going to go into foreclosure. There are a series of notices that it has to provide the consumer. It's now those institutions will now copy Pennsylvania Housing Finance Authority on their foreclosure notices.
So that's two important steps. Representative, let me go to another issue here. Look, I think that there are a lot of folks out there who say, if you've got a genuine problem and you were misled, we want to help you. On the other hand, there are a lot of folks who speculated, flipped this house, speculated. On the one hand, I think it would be in the state's interest to help those people who really need it, who were defrauded or somehow got a mortgage, didn't understand the terms, were lied to, misled, whatever. On the other hand, there are people who just bought homes to flip them to make a lot of money. Is there any way in any of all the stuff that you're doing that some distinction would be drawn between those two sets of circumstances?
Well, I don't think that the legislation draws a distinction.
Okay.
Not at this point, at least. What we have done is, as you explained and as was explained, we're really going after those people that are in crisis.
Right.
We have to take care of the crisis first. I know that there are other issues like the one you've just explained are out there, the people that are speculating, flipping, moving these homes around. But right now, we're kind of dealing with the major problem that we're facing. So
your point would be that most of the people who are in need of this assistance that the state is trying to provide would not be those people who, you would say that most of them are people who fell into this other category that would, were misled or bought something they didn't fully understand. Is that what, in your committee work, is that your general sense?
Right. It's those subprime loans, those subprime mortgages that really have got people by the ankle and is dragging them under. The fact that the arm keeps moving, and when that arm moves up and they can't stop it, they're stuck.
Yeah. I don't know, Rick, you've been on this show many times. We've talked about good and bad practices in with banks and credit unions. Most banks and credit unions are not involved in any of this. I don't see in any of the stuff that's come out of the committees, Commerce Committee in the House, Commerce Committee in the Senate. This all seems to be different than sort of if you went to a conventional bank, you went to a conventional, your savings and loan. You're not going to run into this, are you?
Generally, no. Generally, no. The mainstream institutions, their underwriting standards are more traditional. The instruments they offer are not some of the exotic instruments that have been grabbing the headlines in every media.
All right. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're talking about a very, very important subject, the mortgage crisis. We've got one of the lead legislators here attempting to bring about some major reform. This is also bipartisan. We'll get into that in a moment. See you after this commercial break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back. We're chatting about what I think is a very, very timely and important subject, what the state of Pennsylvania is doing about the mortgage crisis. This, I think, would be called mortgage reform practices, some of the best practices. One of the lead House members here, Representative Pete Daley, chairs the House Commerce Committee, and as often is the case, joined by Rick Wargo, who's General Counsel of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Representative, one of the things that you folks often do in the legislature, and sometimes for understandable reasons, you wrangle, Democrats versus Republicans. You're smiling, you know exactly what I mean. Not so here, right?
No. As a matter of fact, we work with credit unions, we work with the bankers, we work with community banks. And in the legislature, what we did was we worked intensively with my Republican chairman, Dick Hess, from Bedford County. We worked very, very closely together. And the 5-pack of bills came out of our committee with only one negative vote on one particular bill.
Yeah. And the same in the Senate as it is bipartisan over there?
I heard it is. I'm not, intimately involved in what Brown does over there. But it is. And, of course, they run things a little differently than we do. we know that we have a close edge in the House, and we try to be more, at least I try to be more cooperative. And our bills left the floor flying colors.
Okay, now Governor Rendell has indicated his office has indicated he will sign this package when it gets to him?
Yes.
I thought so. Now, what else is in this bill? We talked about a couple of them. There's something to do with interest rate reductions on... what else of importance should our listeners, viewers, and listeners get from this?
Well, the interest rate reduction you're referring to, again, under the Homeowner Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program, if you have that individual facing foreclosure, that bridge loan rate, if they need an emergency loan, will drop from 9% to whatever the current rate is under Pennsylvania's usury laws. That's huge. That's providing a break for the consumer. The package also expands the scope of mortgages that will fall under Pennsylvania's usury law. Originally, the cap was $50,000. That goes back to 1974. The market's radically different now, and now the cap is, closer to reality in the mortgage market. It reaches almost $220,000.
Pete, let's go to sort of the big picture here before we let you guys go. Big picture, what's the purpose of this bill package, and what needs to be done after this? What in total were you trying to accomplish here? I
think, well, Pennsylvania, we tried to lead the nation in the way we attack this problem. We're one of the major states in the nation that have foreclosures. We're not a California, we're not a Florida, but we're right up there because we have so many people from New York coming into Pennsylvania. And we have this. We're trying to assure the public that we in the legislature are being proactive. We want to get this problem addressed and solved, but we need to fix other problems associated with that. We can't let the bad guys out there go out and write mortgages and then sell them the same day they have the paper signed to a subprime lender and have these people get caught and get really shafted major league and ruin their lives.
Yeah, and this is, last word, this package you're confident is a big step towards dealing with that?
Absolutely. It's a pro-consumer package and providing a lot of meaningful assistance for folks in the Commonwealth.
All right. I want to thank both of you for coming in. You'll come back and give us an update. I'm sure there's more that you're going to be looking at. Thanks for coming in, and as always, good to see you. Pleasure. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well out there.